guys, it's Tori, and today I'm going to be doing the enemies tag. Now this tag was originally created by Steve Donahue, so I will link his original video down below. However, he did do it in response to actually the person who tagged me, whose video I will also link, to Emily from Novelle Novels Friends tag. So he did this kind of as an add-on tag. So Emily ended up tagging me in this one. She also had tagged me in the Friends book tag, so I will link that, my video, the Friends tag, down below if you're curious about seeing the development of this a little bit. But anyway, let's just get into the questions. These prompts were all based on the letters in the word enemies, similar to the Friends tag. So yeah, let's just get started with E. E is for enemies. How many enemies do you currently have? And I am going to have the boring answer of no one. I just don't have enough energy to hate people. If I'm going to put energy into a relationship with someone, it's going to be a loving relationship. And if I just don't necessarily connect with someone or necessarily feel comfortable with them for whatever reason, I might just kind of ignore them or just not have them in my life or not pay attention to their social media posts or anything. When I'm already a little socially awkward, socially anxious little person, I'm not going to put energy into hating people when it's already enough energy for me to talk to people. So anyway, that's my answer for that. Next is N is for new release. Are there any November 2020 releases on your TBR? Is the original version, but I'm just going to stick with the any new release. Since November was several months ago at this point. So some recent new releases that I've kind of had on my radar, I'm going to have to think about this because I'm not very good at keeping up with new releases. Okay, I'm going to just mention a couple. I don't really have any that are strongly on my list. I'm not sure if I'll ever get to these, but a couple that have kind of grabbed my attention that I'm waiting to see what other people think about them are one, The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner, that actually just came out earlier in March this month. But this is a book that is a historical fiction about a woman who sells poisons to women in abusive relationships, and she ends up befriending a 12-year-old girl, and I think it's kind of a generational story as well. So that one's one that has kind of grabbed my attention just because, you know, I'm messed up. I like the that kind of a creepy thing. I'm not really a horror reader, but I do like some murder thriller type stories, especially historical ones. So that's one that's kind of piqued my attention. However, I have not heard anyone talk about it, so I don't know if it's been a success or not, but that's one. And then another one that's on my radar just because of the author is The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. Unfortunately, I feel like the premise, which I think is set, I want to say it's set in the Great Depression, but I'm not completely sure. Anyway, it's set in a setting that doesn't necessarily grab my attention, but I have liked Kristin Hannah's works in the past. So, okay, the next E is for enrage. What does it take for a complete stranger to enrage you? I just really hate, and I work in customer service, so I definitely see this a lot. I just really hate people who are very entitled and disrespectful. Again, I don't necessarily see them as enemies, and I don't necessarily put effort into fully hating them, but it really bothers me. It makes me very angry when people, for example, are very rude to people at the front desk at the museum I work at, just because it's not our fault. The rules are not necessarily, we don't get paid enough to even create the rules, so don't get mad at us. It's not our fault. We just have to enforce them. Especially with COVID and with masks, I live in an area where people are they struggle with the mask idea, which I totally understand. I hate the masks too, but you do what you can to be a good citizen, and people just are very disrespectful about it. And to me, I'm like, why do you have to put so much energy and effort into being a jerk about it when nobody here can control it? It's just the way it is. It's been the way it's been for a year now. You should be used to it. Just wear your freaking mask and no one will bother you. That's my thing, is they will refuse to wear it or they'll take it off or whatever, and then they get all upset with you when you say something, and you're like, well, I wouldn't say anything if you would just keep it on. You wouldn't be bothered at all if you would just keep it on. Anyway, so I also struggle with people who expect you to read their mind, especially in a customer service position. And this is kind of a similar, like, entitled, disrespectful attitude of just people just walking up and not saying anything, and you're like, okay, what can I help you with? Like, I don't know what you want. Or they'll get all frustrated when you don't know what they want and you're like, but you didn't communicate anything to me. Like, how am I supposed to know that? So anyway, that really frustrates me as well. So yes, those are some things that enrage me. M is for Malice. What's a memorably evil character who sticks with you? And that is a very good question. Let me think about that for a moment. Oh, I know who I'm going to go with for this. Richard III from Richard III by William Shakespeare. Now, personally, I like to think of Richard III, the real person, as more in the middle, just like a person, a king like any other king of the time period. But I really love how evil he is in Shakespeare. I know a lot of people who are fans of Richard III are very offended by that portrayal, but to me, I just think it's entertaining, and it honestly adds to his mystique as a figure to me, which increases my interest in him for sure. And yeah, I feel like he just is so evil, and I think too, like, to have Shakespeare make a real person that evil, there just has to be so much political and social maneuverings going on behind that sort of an attitude that it makes it very intriguing. I could also say Iago from Othello, because he's very manipulative, and I find him very interesting as well. So I'm gonna go with those two. In fact, I've heard someone say that those two are probably Shakespeare's most evil characters in all of his plays. So, okay, I is for the internet. Is there a person on it that regularly infuriates you? I don't personally, I just am very careful about my internet use. I feel like social media especially, it can be good for getting some information. It can be beneficial to understand different points of view. However, I just feel like people, because of the anonymity, wow, that did not come out right, anonymity of the internet and of social media, where you're not looking at each other face to face, and so it's a lot easier to say things that maybe are a little more intensely emotional than you otherwise would. I feel like it becomes a very dangerous place to share even strong opinions, because most people who disagree get defensive and they don't actually listen. They're not willing to listen to different sides of an argument. And they get defensive and argumentative in return, instead of being like, well, you know, this is how I think about it. Instead of like debating in a healthy way, it becomes very aggressive. And so I don't always really pay attention to things on social media, especially like Twitter, I feel like is very like that. So when I go on social media, I usually prefer to just look at the happier things. I prefer Instagram because I feel like there's a little more calm there. There's also more like ability to see where people get their information from, because they usually share other posts, or they will share links to things a lot more on there, I feel like, in a way that feels more like they're trying to inform rather than argue. I think Instagram definitely has some arguments going on, but I feel like, honestly, the presence of the picture, which usually is a more calming thing, it helps to calm people down a little bit. So I usually prefer to do that and just avoid anything negative. So I don't really have specific people that infuriate me on social media. It's just more like things people in general say on social media can bother me, and I just prefer to just ignore it. So there's my answer, for my long answer for that. E is for eradication. Is there a book you'd erase from existence, and if so, why? I am going to go the boring route with this one too, I'm sorry, but I don't feel like it's right to eradicate literature, because I'm one that I believe if you want free speech and you want the ability to share your opinion and share your beliefs online, and if you want with other people in general, and if you want to be able to do that, you need to accept that other people can't do. And those people you probably won't agree with, and you probably will hate what they want to say. And you also need to accept that other people can argue with you because they also have freedom of speech. It's hard to do that because there's a lot of harmful people out there who share harmful ideas or ideas that we really don't agree with. But again, if we want to be able to say what we think, we need to allow other people the same opportunity. And so I feel like with books too, even if it's a book I really don't like, or I feel like it has a message I don't agree with, or I just think it's not a well-written book, like, it's not fair for me to decide that that doesn't deserve to exist. I know this isn't like a legit question, like they're not legitimately asking so that they can actually do it. But you know, that's just kind of how I view these sort of questions. So anyway, there's that. And the last question is, S is for Seething. Is there a book that still enrages you years later? And I'm going to go with a book I recently tried to reread. I have a vlog for it if you're curious to watch it. But that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I read this in high school. Really didn't like it. I really didn't like the characters or the plot, really, and I recently was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it another try. A lot of people love this book. I'm gonna give it a try. And if you watch that vlog, you'll see that I ended up DNFing it halfway through. It's not even a 200-page book, and I just could not do it. I DNF'd it, and it still just brought up so much anger in me. Even the first chapter, like as soon as I started reading it, all the enraged feelings came back to me, and I just, I can't with that book at all, unfortunately. So that is my final answer for this. I went way longer on filming this video than I thought it would take, but anyway, there's all my thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below some of your answers to these questions, and I'm not going to tag anyone because I'm not sure who has done this, and I'm just never really prepared to tag people, sorry. So anyway, again, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!